Hi everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks. An update 1.10.1 was teased to us yesterday as the test server went live. And so today I'm going to let you know everything there is to know to look forward to in the next update of World of Tanks. So today's video is going to be an overview of the update presented to you in video form, and on subsequent days on this channel I will be presenting all of the different features and the gameplay in more detail. So let's take a look to see what there is to look forward to. Alright, so right off the bat, customize your dog tags. Well, if any of you remember from the event from last year's Tank Festival, if you absolutely utterly loved spending random points to customize your dog tags and then show them off to your opponents as you manage to defeat them in combat, yeah, you've got something to look forward to. You're going to basically be able to customize a dog tag and shove it in your opponent's faces. Personally, for me, not really too interested in any of this. I think the customization in World of Tanks has probably kind of gone far enough, I would say, without making this game feel more and more like a Call of Duty title. But if you're into it, you've got that to look forward to. Alright, now let's get into the things that I am a little bit more interested in, and that will be the actual tanks inside the game and the balancing of them. So, firstly, good news for all of you who like high-tier medium tanks, especially German and Chinese medium tanks, and that is because there are going to be some substantial buffs to these vehicles. Firstly, let's talk about the E50. One of the oldest tanks in the game, the E50 is going to be getting two smaller buffs to the vehicle. Firstly, on its standard rounds on the 105mm penetration is going to be increased by 10, and also on the turret armor, it's actually going to be increased by 30mm. And this means while previously you'd be able to penetrate the E50 with about 190mm of pen in the turret, now you're going to need about 225 to be able to go through it fairly consistently. So great news for all of you German medium tank players out there. Your penetration is going to be higher with the 105mm, and your turret armor is going to be better than ever before. Wargaming are also changing the 88mm that you can use on the E50. For all of you old school players out there, you might not realize, but Wargaming added on an 88mm to this vehicle, which gives it a staggering damage per minute. However, the next patch, the alpha damage of the vehicle is going to be increased from 240 to 280, but they're actually changing and lowering the rate of fire to make up for that. So that actually means that the vehicle's going to actually lose 80 DPM, which is a bit of an annoyance if you like to play that thing like a wild child. But to only lose 80 DPM, but to be able to gain 40 alpha damage, should help you out with some of the trades against the lower tier medium tanks. Its baby brother, the Panther 2, is also getting some love, and yeah, let's be honest, it really did need it. The Panther 2 is probably one of the weakest tier 8 medium tanks you're ever going to play in the game. Wargaming are just flat out buffing the alpha damage of this vehicle from 240 up to 280. This actually means that the Panther 2 is going to have a very nice damage per minute of 2,100. However, let's be honest, apart from this thing now having probably one of the best guns that's on a tier 8 medium tank, everything else about it is a little bit poor. And do I suddenly think that the Panther 2 is going to be the best tier 8 medium tank? Nah, that's not the case. If for some reason you're a complete masochist and you also love the Panther 88, the tier 8 German premium medium tank, well, this is going to be the patch for you. And that's because, just like with the Panther 2, it is getting a flat out alpha damage buff. Same rate of fire, going from 240 up to 280 on this 88mm gun. A lot like what Wargaming did with the Tiger 2. I guess the old alpha damage of the game, as the power creep goes up, the alpha damages have to too. That actually means that the Panther 88 is going to have the highest damage per minute of any tier 8 medium tank in the game. It's kind of looking like it's almost breaching into that tier 9 territory, or maybe at least tier 8.9. But just like with the Panther 2, do I suddenly think this is going to be the best tank? No, it's really not. I still think it's going to be absolutely tragic apart from that raw damage per minute performance. Now let's talk about the one that I know a lot of you are probably excited about. It is the tier 10 German medium tank, the E50M. And as we scroll down, yeah, Wargaming haven't really done too much to it until we notice the turret armor. It's going up to 250 thick. And that means while it was previously very easy, in fact a 100% chance to be able to pen the front of the E50M turret with the 270mm of penetration the tank has, now it's actually going to be dropping down to 50%. Now this isn't really so much of an implication for your tier 10 tanks, especially those that are going to dab the 2 key and fire gold at this vehicle. It's still pretty much going to be going in every single time. But really, this is going to hit the tier 8 and the tier 9 tanks very hard. Even the tier 8 tanks firing gold rounds are no longer going to be able to penetrate this vehicle in the turret reliably. And tier 9 tanks, unless they have access to, should we say, tier 10 gold rounds like the T-54, they're going to struggle with the turret armor on this tank too. So all in all, the E-50M should be in a better position to sit there exposing only its upper hull and its turret against lower tier tanks. And really, it just means that all tier 9s and tier 10s have to dab the 2 key to be able to penetrate this thing in the turret. However, it's not all good news for German medium tank lovers out there, and that is because Wargaming are actually nerfing the Leopard prototype, the tier 9 one. Not the tier 10 one. If you love the Leopard 1 at tier 10, it's fine. It's going to stay the same. But the tier 9 one is going to have 25% worse dispersion when it's moving and when it's turning the tank, and 20% worse dispersion when it's turning the turret. And also, the aim time is being nerfed from 1.9 to 2. So what this effectively means is the Leopard prototype is kind of losing its vertical stabilizer status. So if you were to take the vertical stabilizers off the tank right now and play it without the vert stabs, that's what the tank is going to play like next patch with the vert stabs. So yeah, it's a pretty heavy hit to a vehicle that at the moment, obviously if Wargaming are doing this, is performing statistically very strongly. So if you absolutely love the Leopard prototype, get in there. You've probably got about 3-4 weeks left to play this vehicle in its current, clearly, at least if Wargaming thinks so, overpowered state. Now let's talk about the Chinese tanks, and that's right, a very underloved tech tree is getting a substantial buff. Firstly, the T-34-1, this is a tier 7 Chinese medium tank, is getting a massive buff. The accuracy from 0.42 to 0.4, the dispersion values during gun rotation is being improved by 12%, and the aim time is being buffed from 2.9 to 2.7. It's also getting a hit point buff of 90, and, sorry, let me correct that, by 100, depending on which turret you choose. And this is massive news. If any of you watched my top 10 videos towards the end of 2019, you'll know that the T-34-1 is probably one of, if not the best, tier 7 medium tank. So for Wargaming to be buffing it right now, that's absolutely incredible news for the vehicle. Funnily enough, though, the T-34-2, which I think is probably one of the weaker tier 8 medium tanks, is kind of getting this pseudo buff / pseudo nerf. They're reducing the alpha damage of the vehicle, one of the things that I thought that actually made it reasonably successful, from 390 down to 360. So it's kind of going to have the same alpha damage as something like a Lancer now. But they're only buffing the accuracy of the vehicle by 0.02 and the aim time by 0.2 to make up for this alpha damage nerf. They're buffing the hit points of the vehicle as well. Yeah, this thing still really is not going to compete compared to all of the premium vehicles in the game. And I don't think it's enough. So Wargaming, if you're listening, I think the T-34-2 needs to be addressed a little bit more. Now let's move on to the WZ-120, a vehicle that I personally really don't enjoy, but there are some people out there who like the 440 alpha damage at tier 9 and the heat rounds that the vehicle has. So what are Wargaming doing to it? Well, they're buffing the dispersion on the turret traverse. They're also buffing the reload speed from 12 seconds to 11 seconds. So pretty much a 10-5, about a 7% buff to the DPM of the vehicle there. They're also buffing the top speed from 56 to 60 and the hit points by 100. It's pretty big news for this vehicle, but let's be honest, while the dispersion helps, it doesn't change the aiming time of this tank, which is an abysmal 3.4 seconds. I think this will be enough to definitely boost up the vehicle a little bit without making it flat out overpowered. But all in all, do I think that the WZ-120 is going to compete with something like the Object 430, even with the 430 nerfs? No. Obviously, it's going to help a little bit, but I'd still probably rather play the 430. All right, ladies and gents, boys and girls, let's move on to the Tier 10 Chinese medium tank, the 121. Wargaming are improving the penetration on the stand-arounds by 4. Every little helps, I guess. 4 millimeters in this case. The shell velocity is being improved by 115 meters a second. That will mean that that will definitely help, actually. The UDES, the tier 10 Swedish medium tank, has really awful shell velocity, a lot like the 121. It's one of the things that always holds me back about the tank. To have a little bit better shell velocity will help you to snapshot at decent distances against moving targets, not giving them a chance to change themselves. Wargaming aren't changing the gun handling of this vehicle, and I don't think they really need to. If they'd given it a little bit more gun depression, it would have been wild, but since the buffs that the 121 had, it's actually been in a pretty good position. It's just the aim time that holds it back, but when you've got 440 alpha damage, and you've also got some turret armor, yeah, I think it's fine, considering the damage per minute that this vehicle has, which is really nice. It's got the same rate of fire as an E50M, but just 50 higher alpha damage. So they're also buffing the engine power of this tank, definitely something that really held it back. They're improving it from 580 up to 650. That definitely improves the power to weight ratio of this vehicle by 15%, over 15%. That will really help out the 121 to be able to get up slopes. And as I mentioned, stay tuned to the channel as I'll be showing you some gameplay of this vehicle probably tomorrow or definitely on Sunday. But we're not done there. Wargaming are also buffing the hull armor of this vehicle on the front from 120 up to 135, and they're buffing the health from 1,950 up to 2,050, kind of making it a bit like an E50M with that regards. So let's take a look to see what the armor on this vehicle, how will it actually hold up? So this is how the 121 previously held up on the 1.10 update that we are all currently playing. So yeah, 100% chance to be able to penetrate the upper hull. And it's about 200 millimeters of effective armor. Let's take a look to see what it is on the test server. So wow, it's going up to about 220 millimeters, up to 230 in some corners of effective armor. So that's, as you would expect, just about a 10% or even a 15% buff to the effective armor on the front of the hull. But now let's imagine that the 121 is angling and angling and also using its extent of its gun depression, which is 5 degrees. Well, previously the vehicle had about 240 millimeters of armor, not enough to be able to bounce the standard rounds of tier 10 tanks. Now let's imagine that we're doing it on the test server. What's the armor going to be like now? Wow, yeah, up to about 260, 270 in parts. So that is a massive difference on the vehicle. It basically means that while previously it would be very likely, even if you're angling the tank perfectly like this, that a tier 10 vehicle would pen you with standard rounds, now they're actually going to have about a 50% chance or even less to be able to go through your vehicle. So this will substantially help the tank. Maybe not so much against the tier 10 vehicles, but it will definitely help against the tier 8 and tier 9 vehicles that this tank will be playing against. Obviously, tier 8 and tier 9 tanks, they don't have the 270 penetration that you're going to have to go through the 121 when it's angling like this now. But previously, they would be able to go through the 230. So the 121 should be more robust than ever. I'm kind of a little bit concerned about this, though, because do we really need to have another Object 430U in the game? I'm not so sure. Anyway, leave it for the gameplay and the full fleshed out discussion that I'm going to have on this vehicle. They'll be coming to the channel in the next couple of days where I discuss that. And the final buff of the 1.10.1 update looks to be like for one of my favorite original medium tanks, the Object 140. They are buffing the gun depression up to 7 degrees, and they're also improving the upper hull armor, a lot like on the 121. So how will this affect the tank? Well, previously, the Object 140 had about 200 to 210 millimeters of effective upper hull armor, and you've got a 95% chance to be able to go through it with your own ammunition. Now, the vehicle's actually going to have between about 220 up to about 230 millimeters of effective upper hull armor. So that means that you've actually now only got a 70% chance in some areas or an 80% chance to be able to go through this tank on the upper hull. Massive buff to the Object 140. But here's the thing. Remember, the gun depression has also been buffed. Let's imagine that in the current patch, the Object 140 is using its maximum gun depression, and it's using that ridgeline against you. Well, we can see that if the Object 140 wants to shoot you in the hull, peering over a ridgeline, that you are going to be able to penetrate it, because the original angle is going to be less than 70 degrees. Of course, heat rounds would be able to butter their way through this tank, but at least that's for the AP rounds that a lot of tanks have, or a lot of tanks will be firing. Now let's imagine the Object 140 is using its 7 degrees of buffed gun depression on the next update of World of Tanks. Well, as you can see, this now means that the Object 140 is able to actually get over the 70 degrees of angling, which will make all shells ricochet, unless of course they're dabbing the 2 key. But just take a look to see how impressive the upper hull is when you're using the 7 degrees of gun depression. You've actually got 300, 330 in some places, well 320 millimeters or 315 millimeters of effective armor. I sound like I'm an auctioneer going in reverse right now, huh? But that is decent. That's very decent. I don't think anyone could say that 300 was not effective. Now let's imagine you're also angling your armor towards the side here, and oh yeah, that is the kind of armor that I like to see. Now, even if your opponents fire heat rounds at you, they're only going to have about a 40 or even a 30% chance to be able to go through. Whereas previously, if the Object 140 was using its maximum 6 degrees of gun depression and they're firing the heat rounds at your upper hull, yeah, they're going through it 70% of the time. So if that is not a massive buff to the tank, I don't know what is. And so if you have an Object 140 and you haven't played it in a long time, should we say actively, like me, because the 430U is just staring you in the face and just saying, play me, play me, play me, this one's going to be good. Obviously, it now means that the T-62A is more irrelevant than ever, but that thing is now a collector's tank, and I don't think Wargaming really care about the vehicle. They haven't, obviously, it's done. The T-62A, this is the final nail in the coffin. If these changes, of course, take place, there will be no contention between the Object 140 or the T-62 anymore. It will just be 140, 140, 140, and if you want to have better hull armor, then you go for the 430U. So those are all the buffs. What else is coming new? Well, apparently they're going to do Season 2 of ranked battles. There's hardly any changes, apart from the fact that apparently artillery that stun you if you're on their team are going to be penalized faster, and they'll get team killer status quicker, and then they'll eventually, I guess, risk a ban. There's improvements to Equipment 2.0, and all they're really doing is just changing the screen interface and allowing you to drag and drop. That's it. Also, warning. If you want to purchase the demount equipment for credits, then do so, because on update 1.10.1 being released, you will no longer be able to get your demounting equipment. All right, now I want to just very quickly go over some of the different maps that are being adjusted and the new encounter maps as well. So Berlin, they're changing the position over here. We can see that now there's a much bigger window to be able to engage there. And in the next update, they're actually shifting this along, which will allow both teams to be able to use the position more actively rather than this team using it a bit more actively. Over here, everybody knows the window. This is as if you spawned in the southeast and you're going towards the window. Watch out for that. It's now going to be wider and a lot easier for your opponents to be able to shoot through. They're also changing this position, which will actually allow tanks with less gun depression to be able to use it. This is from the south side spawn, and if you look on the opposite side, that there's a little bit of a change over there that will prevent the enemy team from using that position, I think, as effectively, or maybe they will also be able to use it with the gun depression as well. This is the window that we saw from above. Now it's going to be much easier to be able to both shoot out of, but also shoot into, and I expect that artillery are going to be able to splash into this little basket a lot easier. What are they doing over in this position? They've actually created an additional location for the team that spawns towards the north to be able to get to shots towards the bunker. You see up here, now it is going to be accessible, and that should make it harder to just be able to sit in the middle of the map if you spawn on the southern team and just hang around the bunker and don't expect the northern team to actually be able to shoot out effectively against you, so watch out for that. They're making tiny adjustments here. I guess this is to create a line where light tanks can go across without being spotted through this gap, so that gap is now gone. Okay, they're also changing Westfield. This is quite a big change to Westfield. These are actually the buildings towards the south. If you imagine just over this part down here where my mouse reticle is, if you can see it, that is where the bridge is on Westfield. So they're changing the buildings to be aligned up. What this will actually allow you to do is, say you're a heavy tank, you can go and sit behind this building here, or you can sit behind that building there and be able to shoot at all of the medium tanks and the light tanks that are camping towards the corner. You'll actually be able to render them from that distance. So that's quite a big change. Erlenberg, they're making it far easier for the team that spawns towards the north to be able to go across the river early and then go and hide in this position. From here, it's actually not going to be possible for all of the enemy tanks up on the hill opposite you to be able to shoot across because of the new buildings there, so big change. They're also making it the water shallower here to try and encourage the team that spawns towards the north to cross and try and contest the other side, which is a good change in my opinion. Runeberg, they're making ways for the team that spawns towards the south to hide in these kind of alcoves, which will stop them from being flanked if the northern team win the eastern flank and come and flank around and shoot you all in the behind. And they're also, I guess, weakening this position a little bit to stop the team that spawns on the north from engaging the tanks towards the south and sitting on this spoil heap. They're also completely annihilating the middle of the map here. They're removing this tree, which will actually allow tanks up here to get spotted a little easier. But more importantly, they're reducing this kind of rubble heap that comes out around here, which will prevent tanks from just sitting in the middle and shooting across, so watch out for that. They're also making this lower. That should help for, should we say, shorter tanks, but if you're in a Jagdpanzer 100, maybe your lower plate is going to be less covered there, so watch out for that. Also, Wargaming are changing Karelia, Stojanki, Westfield, and Pilsen to be encounter-type maps. And if you'd like me to do a separate video on those map changes to show them in detail, where I fly around and actually show you them and discuss the tactics, then let me know in the comments down below. And if you want me to show you the encounter battles as well, if there's interest in it, I'll do it. All right, Daily missions rework. What are Wargaming doing here? Well, they're actually changing it now so that you are going to be getting less of premium time. You're going to be getting less of, should we say, the bonds, because those are currently the only two things that you can get. Now they're actually adding it so you can get a personal training manual and also new pieces of equipment like the turbocharger, improved hardening, and improved aiming. All right, so I guess what Wargaming are doing is giving you less premium time and less bonds, and now they're giving you effectively more credits. If you get a personal training manual, that's pretty cool. That allows you to boost up, I believe, your commander. Hold on, I need to check this now. Is the personal training personal training manual for the commander? Yes, it is. So that will actually allow you to boost one crew individually. For me, obviously, I say a commander because that's probably who you actually want to boost up. But what this means is that if you're a free-to-play player and you were saving up like the premium time to be able to activate and then play for a lot at the weekend where you were going to try and actually activate that premium day boost, you're not going to be able to do that anymore. So really this is kind of a nerf, I'd say. They're saying it's a daily missions rework, and they've been closely monitoring the statistics of their completion while tracking your feedback. I really don't think that, so the difficulty of these missions have been increased to reflect the new, more valuable rewards. Wargaming, I think you're, in my opinion, lying here. I don't agree. I don't think that this is actually a buff. The fact that you're changing the epic rewards from being premium time, which I think is the most desirable because you can only get it for gold, to giving us things like credits. A lot of people don't need credits, but a lot of players, especially the free-to-play players, really need premium time. And that's it. That is update 1.10.1, ladies and gents. Now you know what is probably going to come in the next few weeks of World of Tanks. But of course, everything is subject to change as it is a test server, and expect the statistics of these vehicles to maybe change a little bit or maybe not at all. Really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If it was especially helpful, give it a thumbs up. If you hated it, give it a thumbs down. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next few days as I will be delivering you videos and gameplay on those top tier medium tanks so you can see how they perform on the battlefield and not just QuickyBaby talking about their statistics. Anyway, that's it. I hope you all have a lovely weekend. Enjoy it, whatever you get up to. And hopefully I'll see you soon in some new videos.